Lots of things to talk about in Met world. The Mets are, it looks like, maybe moving on from Pete Alonso. We don't have the official word yet if this is the end of Pete Alonso in a Met uniform. I'm going to talk about that. Also, Mets signed a new eighth inning reliever. We're very excited for the addition of a new setup man. Mets also bring back one of their fan favorites from 2024 and sign a potentially big move on the international scene. New prospect who is coming to the Mets organization, and we're very excited about him potentially lacing up with the Mets later this decade. So a lot of things to discuss. Roll. Welcome to Mike's Mets Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Peixoto, and I'm not sure what day this is coming out, but I'm recording on Sunday, so I'm looking to be releasing this probably on Monday, so happy Martin Luther King Day to you and everyone else. So, lots to talk about, as I said in my intro, and the big thing is, of course, once again, Pete Alonso, and I'm sure we're all kind of tired of talking about Pete at this point. It's been a situation that's been ongoing for the last few months, and if you want to go back even farther, years really. But we have made a breakthrough of sorts in terms of what we think is going to happen with Alonso, and it's not good. We now know that the Mets have kind of put down their foot and have said to Alonso, this is our final offer. The deal, which was reportedly in the range of 3 years, it was $68 million to $70 million. So if you want to calculate the AAV, it's obviously over $20 million a year. He is been offered this contract. They do not see any options really in terms of what to offer. I don't know if his opt-out clauses are going to be included in that. It's part of the ongoing negotiations. But they have reportedly are ready to move on, and that's just the way it's going to play out now with Alonso. Unfortunately, they are done dealing with Boris, and they're done dealing with him. At this point, they've exhausted all their options. They do not want to explore a long-term contract with Alonso, and their short-term contracts, they're not interested in exploring anything more than what they're offering reportedly. So if their max offer is 3 years, $70 million, it's a lot less than Alonso was looking for in terms of not just AAV, but also in terms of years. His total contract value would be a lot less also. So this is, it's got to be dispiriting for Alonso, who viewed his potential market as being a lot more lucrative when he initially explored free agency, but has obviously just kind of fallen apart in terms of estimation because teams are just not looking to spend money on a player like him. And it's going to come down to what have you done for me lately, and and it's a little bit of recency bias with Alonso, but he's coming off a so-so year. The same with Alex Bregman. They're coming off seasons where they did not produce like stars. They produced like players that were good but not great, and because of that, you're going to receive good but not great contract offers. And the Mets are offering a contract that is, I think, more than fair for what he provides. It's not what Alonso is looking for, but guess what? You're not going to get that kind of offer, and we're more and more. It's if he does not agrees to the contract, which seems likely, he does not want to back down in terms of this. He's probably looking at a 1 year deal, probably like for a $25 to $30 million deal with someplace. I don't know where. Again, no one's really looking for a player like him at this point. All the other teams have explored their options. They've made their signings. We've seen Christian Walker, we've seen Paul Goldschmidt, all go off the market before Alonso, and it has not played out the way that Pete thought it was going to play out, and he is just going to have to deal with that in his own way. If this means biting the bullet and saying, yes, I'll agree to a 3-year deal with the Mets, I think we'll all be happier for it, but I don't know if that's a likelihood at this point anymore. It just doesn't seem like it's a possibility. And Pete, I mean, this is really kind of more going to fall on him. I've had discussions and debates and arguments about whose fault it really is at this point. People have said Pete, people have said the Mets, people have said Scott Boras. I'll throw it all really on all three parties at this point. Alonso badly misjudged what his market was going to be like when he fired his agent after 2023 and said he was going to sign with Scott Boras, and that Boras was going to be the guy that was going to negotiate his offer when he hit free agency. And it's all well and good when you have a superstar athlete, like Juan Soto, who's going to cash in and get a monster contract. It's a little bit harder to predict what the market's going to be like for a player like Pete, who is unquestionably very good. I think he's among the top 10 first basemen in the league in terms of production, and his defensive value, which is not great, but certainly not terrible. He certainly gets points also for his durability. These are all things that play well in Alonso's favor in terms of trying to determine what contract they're going to offer him. And it's not like the Mets are playing hardball in terms of, we're going to give you a cheap contract and that's just all we can afford and that's the way we deal with it. They're not undervaluing him. I think they're valuing him appropriately. It's just not what Alonso wants. And it's in this regard, I kind of have to put more of the onus on Alonso, because Alonso has just not come back down to earth in terms of what he thinks he should be being paid, and that's just something he has to come to terms with on his own. I don't really know what else to say about Alonso other than he doesn't know what he should be valued at this point, and because of that, it's led to this situation that's gotten progressively uglier. Alonso now feels like a guy who just doesn't want to be a Met, and it doesn't feel like the Mets really don't care at this point because of the way that he's pursued it. So I of course love Pete. I think he should get his contract, but I also think what the Mets have offered him is definitely a fair offer. They have given him a contract that seems to fit the market, and he doesn't have a market. This is the problem. It's just, and we've played this argument out several times over the course of this podcast, where he is a player who is just good enough to be paid like a guy who should be paid like $25 million a year, and to offer more than that would be just insane. I think the rumor that he was being offered a 3-year $90 million contract by the Mets was absolutely ludicrous. If that was a true fact, again, I would have to see it like in writing from like the Mets themselves and from Scott Boras that this contract offer actually happened. I still don't believe it happened. And allegedly now the Mets have said, and this is another rumor. This is not like substantiated. It's just a rumor, but the Mets have apparently said, according to MLB insider Carlos Pereira, that he has until Monday to agree to their contract offer, or that's it. They're moving on from that point on, and there's a lot of situations where the Mets can go in this way. They can go back to their original Plan B idea, which was just move Mark Vientos over to first base and try some internal options at third base. Brett Beatty, Ronnie Mauricio, Luis Acuna. And if they re-sign Jose Iglesias, let's say, but they have a number of ways to go. It's just not a way that I would prefer them to go. The lineup is obviously a lot more dangerous with Pete Alonso in it, but if they can't get this deal done with, and they can't get, the two sides can't come to a mutually acceptable compromise, then it's just a done deal at this point. So I don't think we're going to see something happen. I would be very surprised if tomorrow morning we find out that Pete Alonso has agreed to the contract offer. Now, if this happens before then, I'll have to re-record some of this, but we'll see. I'm hoping that this episode comes out before that happens, but we'll just have to find out. So Plan B would be obviously the internal option. Plan C is, of course, the thing that's been rumored now. The Mets have looked into acquiring Vladimir Guerrero Jr., who's obviously everybody is very interested in Guerrero Jr.'s happenings. The Toronto Blue Jays are in the middle of trying to negotiate an extension offer with Guerrero. If he does come to an extension offer with the Blue Jays, then this is obviously off the table. The Blue Jays don't want to lose him, but they're also striking out repeatedly on every free agent option that's come their way. Most recently, rookie Sasaki was yet another Blue Jays failure to acquire anybody. So you got to look at it from Guerrero's point of view, is like, why would I come here if no one else wants to come here? Why would I want to stay here, really? So if that's the option, do they look to trade him? And the Blue Jays have said, reportedly, if they were going to trade Guerrero, they would want more of a they would want a better offer than what the Padres got from the New York Yankees when they traded Juan Soto. Now, this whole thing kind of played out the same way with Soto and the Padres, where once it became clear that Soto wasn't interested in re-signing with the Padres, and then he wasn't going to sign any kind of extension offer that the Padres were offering, the Padres had to look to recoup some kind of any kind of assets in that trade. And remember, they had traded a number of prospects to acquire Soto in the first place, and under the expectation that Soto was going to sign, so they were desperate to get anything back, and the Yankees were offering what was comparatively what was like less than what they would hit, what the Padres had given up to acquire Soto in the first place. So they had traded Michael King, Rady Vasquez. I'm blanking on a couple of others. Higashioka, the catcher, was another one, and I'll look it up in a second. But what they got was comparatively not that much. I would look at it and say, like, this wasn't a great deal. It was, so Drew Thorpe was a prospect, good, a well considered prospect in the minor leagues. Higashioka and Johnny Brito was the other one, but the principal one was Michael King, who obviously became a great starting pitcher for the Padres in 2024. So it was a good move for the Padres part, but they got what was not considered great value back. Brito and Vasquez are considered good pitchers, potentially, but we don't really know that much about it. And then of course Drew Thorpe was a good prospect, but these aren't like this wasn't like a king's ransom that they got back in exchange for Soto. So look at it like that from the Padres' point of view, or actually from the Blue Jays' point of view. They have to acquire a group of players that are better than that group. So a quality pitcher, veteran who's been in the league for a while, 3 prospects, and a backup catcher. Let's say somebody, a role player of some kind, and let's say that was the deal that's what the Padres got. So the Blue Jays are looking for something similar or better than that. So what do the Mets have to offer in this case? And it's not a lot. I came up with a preliminary offer. I might get laughed out by this, but my thought was David Peterson, Jose Butto, Luis Acuna, Drew Gilbert, and Brett Beatty, and send those 5 off in exchange for Guerrero and maybe a sweetener, maybe somebody to get their contracts, like somebody that the Blue Jays are looking to get rid of. I don't know who that might be, but let's say that throw that into a sweetener. The Mets' biggest thing is that they can acquire contracts without any real problem. So bring in somebody that they don't want on their books anymore. Let's say that. So we had that kind of trade offer. I'm not saying it's a great offer. Maybe it's something that would have to be played out a little bit more, but it is something that's realistic. I mean, the Blue Jays have to get rid of him if he's not going to sign an extension offer, and we're not sure how long it's going to be in terms of that. Guerrero has been cagey in terms of his response. He hasn't said anything too positive or too negative in that regard. So his agents are keeping him smartly not non-committal in terms of any way as to what Guerrero really wants, and that's a good sign that the Mets have a chance to potentially acquire him. Bringing in him for that kind of offer, let's say that trade offer was an option. Obviously, it's risky given the Mets already very thin at starting pitching to trade Peterson and Budo, two guys who can be big parts of both the Mets rotation and bullpen. I'm not totally sold on Peterson. As good as he was in 2024, Peterson has a really rocky up and down trajectory in terms of his career, where he's been great in 2020, bad in 2021, great in 2022, bad in 2023, great in 2024. Is he going to be great in 2025? He has not had that consistency. So if I was going to look at it as a potential move, I would say like, okay, well, let's weigh that option and say like, okay, well, maybe he struggles again in 2025. It might be a good idea to get rid of him and trade him while his value is high, before things start coming down again for Peterson. The prospects I mentioned, I mean Acuna, I really like Acuna, but I don't view him as a must-have, nor do I view Brett Beatty as must-have or Drew Gilbert. So it does give the Blue Jays value back, but it's not amazing value back. But I think it's better than what the Yankees traded for Soto in the first place. So, and Soto obviously better than Vlad Guerrero Jr. So these are things that are going to be played out. There's going to be a lot of trade offers. I don't think it's going to be quite as expensive as most people might think, because I don't think the Padres got comparatively a lot back when they traded Soto. So just view that in mind when you think about what the Mets might have to trade up, and it wouldn't require. I don't think Jet Williams. I don't think it would require Sprout. I don't think it would require a lot of people. Like, so there's ways for this to go. I don't necessarily think it'll be extremely expensive if they have to trade some of their prospects or some of their players, and it's ways that they can replace value. There are still pitchers available on the starting pitching market. I would look at possibly Jack Flaherty as a rotation piece to add into in place of David Peterson, and I would look at Flaherty as a great addition to the Mets starting rotation, just because of his talent, his ability, his proven postseason experience. This is a guy who would be a great addition to the Mets rotation. We get them a legitimate ace at the top of the top of rotation, and Flaherty, Senga, and Manaea is a much more attractive, much better top three than just Manaea, Peterson, and Senga. That's not quite as impressive, but Flaherty would definitely give them a little bit more legitimacy. And I think Flaherty, you can get him on a deal that would be similar to like what the Dodgers just gave Blake Snell. So probably about $30 million a year, but I would give $30 million a year to Jack Flaherty. That doesn't seem like a crazy move in my part. So, just food for thought. But if we're looking at ways to replace Alonso, you have to get creative. You have to look at it as a way to potentially bring in somebody who can fill in these holes. And Guerrero Jr. would be obviously a huge addition to the team. But outside of that, they don't really have a lot of other options. So it's internals or Vlad Guerrero Jr., and you're going to have to start coming up with some crazy trade proposals at some point. So just keep that in mind if you're thinking about acquiring Vlad Guerrero Jr. We're sorry to see Pete go, if that is the case. If this is the end for the Polar Bear in Flushing, then we salute you. Thank you very much for your service, Pete Alonso. We loved all the great moments that you've provided. Obviously, his incredible performance in the 2024 postseason was very appreciated, and he definitely left a mark during his time here with the Mets. We would love to see him stay on, but if this is the end, then we just want to say we love you, Pete. We hope you stick around, but if not, thank you very much for everything you did for us as a member of the New York Mets. So let's talk about the new addition to the Mets pitching staff. So the Mets had been looking to bolster their bullpen this offseason, and they did just that. They made a 2-year, $22 million signing to acquire left-handed reliever A.J. Minter. Minter is coming over. He's been one of the most reliable relievers from the Atlanta Braves for his entire career, actually. So it's a 2-year, $22 million deal. It's going to include an opt-out clause after 2025. So there is a potential situation where Minter goes back onto the free agent market after 2025, but hopefully he's here for 25 and 26. So he has been one of the most reliable relievers in Atlanta's bullpen since his debut in 2017. He has a career 3.28 ERA, 420 strikeouts, really good numbers. He's been primarily used in a setup role, but there has been some times where he's filled in as a closer. He recorded 15 saves in 2018. This is a tremendous addition to the Mets bullpen. Last year, 39 appearances for the Braves. He was 5-4. A very good 2.62 ERA. Just really effective for them, particularly down the stretch. Only allowed 3 earned runs over his final 19 appearances. Basically exactly what the Mets need. He's what the Mets have required in their late inning situations. He is a perfect veteran to add into the situation. Not too old. He will fill a gap that was left by Brooks Raley after Raley got hurt. So they acquire a perfect reliever for their 8th inning role, especially considering he's a left-handed reliever also. So this is a great addition. When healthy, he is really good. He is a 3-pitch arsenal, keeps hitters off balance. He throws a fastball, sits around 96 miles an hour, changeup that batters hit for just only 120 in 2024, and really sharp cutter, generates lots of swings and misses. Basically, this is what we need from our 8th inning man, and he's going to be a terrific bridge to Edwin Diaz going into the 9th inning. So the combination of Minter and Diaz is going to be, I think, electric for the Mets. It's going to be one of the best combinations that we've seen in a while. Minter has proven himself also valuable in the playoffs. 25 postseason innings. He's posted a 2.88 ERA with 36 strikeouts, limiting batters to an opposing to a 185 batting average. So there is a bit of concern about Minter's health, of course. So it's as good an acquisition as it is. It does come with the caveat that he's been limited by injuries the past 2 seasons. In 2024, he had a hip issue that did cause him to miss all of June, and ultimately ended his season in August after requiring surgery. So this is also after a shoulder injury, sidelined for a couple weeks in 2023. So he's not coming with a perfect build health, and has had injury issues recently. So there is some risk to the acquisition of Minter, but ultimately I think a really strong acquisition for the Mets, acquiring such a stable veteran, especially for a division rival. A terrific move by the Mets, and there are some people who bemoan the fact that they had Tanner Scott. They were looking at Tanner Scott as a possible acquisition. I talked about Scott on the last episode of this podcast, and how great it would have been to add Scott. Scott ultimately signed with the Dodgers over the weekend. Another addition by the Dodgers for 4 years, $72 million, if I'm not mistaken, and that's. There isn't really anything that we can say about that. It's Tanner Scott's decision if he wants to leave, and if he wants to go sign with the Los Angeles Dodgers and be the full-time closer, as opposed to being the setup man. I don't begrudge him that decision, and I think it was wise by the Mets to pivot smartly over to A.J. Minter. So I really like the move. The Mets are hoping that Minter can stay healthy and be a key contributor for them. And if he is healthy, I believe that will be the case. We'll see how it all plays out. So really excited for that. It was a great addition by the Mets. A major acquisition was the Mets acquiring Jesse Winker to come back on a 1-year deal. I'm really happy to see Winker back in a Met uniform. The 1-year deal is worth reportedly $8 million. Winker has to pass his physical, but that is all pretty expected that he should pass without any real issues. So with Winker back on a 1-year deal, it does create some interesting possibilities. Winker can play all 3 outfield positions, obviously, but the Mets also already have Brandon Nimmo in left, Juan Soto at right, Tyrone Taylor and Jose Siri are presumably going to be platooning in center field. So where does that leave Winker? And at first base, we don't really know, like I said, what to expect in terms of Alonso. We can probably expect him not to be back, and it's hard to really predict what is going to happen with the Alonso situation, but let's say for now that Alonso is not expected to return back. This opens the door for an infielder like Mark Vientos to take over first base, but also the Mets can find an everyday, if they can find an everyday third baseman, that would be the move to make. That's only the only way it works really for the Mets, if they have somebody who can slot into third base, who they think can do it. So while Winker never played first base in the major leagues, he did play there in the minors in 2023. He didn't make any errors. It's not his natural position, but if the Mets are really hard up for finding a way to fill in that position and some of the other moves that they've tried, presumably trying Luis Acuna and maybe Roddy Mauricio when he's healthy at third base, maybe even Jeff McNeil finds his way over to third. It is a possibility that Winker could slot into the first base slot. It's not a definite possibility. My expectation would be that he's probably platooning a DH or maybe a bat off the bench at the very least. But Winker, I thought very highly of Winker when he got here. The expectations didn't really meet reality for the most part. He slumped really badly at the end of the season, and then came back, had some big shots, and in the postseason, I thought Winker was a solid, if not tremendous, addition to the team. So I do like what Winker brings. If it's not on the field, then it's off the field. It's a great energy. You look at him, he just feels like a guy who just helps the clubhouse a lot. He's obviously very emotional in terms of the way that he expresses himself, and it's something that made him definitely alienated him to Met fans when he was on opposing teams. He made it very clear of his thoughts, but the way that he came around and the way that he was very quickly embraced as a Met fan favorite, I should say, was wonderful to see. And I do think Winker is going to have a big role in this team. I'm not sure what that role will be. That will have to be played out in spring training and over the course of the season. But I think he will fill a necessary need for this team as a left-handed hitter. He can do a lot. He has great power, obviously, and his plate discipline is also something exceptional. Career 376 on base percentage. 367, reversed it by my mistake. 367 career on base percentage. Very good, very good in terms of getting on base. So this was a really solid addition to the Mets bench and potentially their starting lineup. So welcome back, Jesse Winker. So another bit of news is the Mets have signed. Is it Elian Pena? I'm not very good with the pronunciation. Let's say Pena. Elian Pena. Let's go with that. There's got to be a pronunciation. Hang on. Okay, I believe it's Elian Pena. Let's go with that for now. Pena signed a $5 million deal. That is the Mets signing through the International Prospects Draft. So allows the Mets to use basically their entire bonus money to sign Pena, and it's quite an investment. Pena, 17-year-old shortstop, considered one of the most exciting young players in the world, and he's known for incredible bat speed, excellent plate discipline, and really smooth fielding. So the deal, it's worth $5 million. It makes him the highest-ranked player to sign with the Mets since MLB Pipeline first started tracking prospects in 2012. So it's a big signing for the Mets. They haven't acquired a player of this notoriety in a long time, and if you're going to compare him to somebody, probably compare him to Francisco Alvarez, a guy who was also very highly coveted by the Mets, and they made him, at the time, the highest paid player they'd ever gone through the international drafts scene. So that was a pretty impressive move by the Mets acquiring him. So this isn't the first time the Mets have made a splash in the international market. Last year, they had signed catcher Giovanni Rodriguez to a record-breaking deal. For some context, Rodriguez really hasn't done that much. He played all of last year in the Dominican Winter League and was fine. I mean, he's obviously very young, so there's still a lot of time for him to improve. But just to give you an idea, like, not everybody is a Francisco Alvarez who rockets up the minor league depth chart, but everybody is on the same consensus in terms of scouting and his metrics. He looks like to be a extremely interesting and impressive offensive player, a guy who's going to do very well in the Mets minor league system, and they expect him probably to be on the team starting within the next few years. I would say probably by 2028, 2029. That's probably the best shot as to when he's going to arrive. Because teenagers don't really don't show up in the major league system anymore. The youngest guy was Jackson Churios this year, and or 2024, and he was 20. So if you're going to kind of like put this in terms of a timeline, I would expect probably he's on the same timeline as Alvarez, who also arrived in the majors as a 20-year-old, and there's a lot to compare him to. So Alvarez obviously did an excellent job in the Mets minor league system. Everybody's different. Pena's a little bit older actually than Alvarez was. Alvarez was 16 when the Mets signed him, so Alvarez 17 years old. They're really excited about him. They think very highly of his potential. He has the potential to be a huge star if everything plays right in his way. And like I said, the bat speed, his ability to hit to all fields. He's a pretty solid shortstop. He's obviously blocked by Francisco Lindor, but positional flexibility is not a problem. You know, they can obviously move him over to second base or third base, and I would expect him probably to fill in one of those roles. So it's up to the Mets to kind of teach him that way, but he has the potential to be a major star. The signing's a really significant step in the Mets' long-term plans, and I would expect him to be a guy we can probably pencil in pretty comfortably as being a starter at some point, and who knows at what position, but at some point before the end of this decade. So a really, really impressive move by the Mets acquiring Pena, and I expect him to be a major addition to this team in the very near future. Hi, I accidentally deleted my outro, so I'm just re-recording this now while I was editing. So while I was doing that, I wanted to express my gratitude and really thank everybody for the support I've gotten over these last few videos. I was really happy to see my video from 2 episodes ago has reached up to 1,000 views now. So if you haven't seen that before, please check it out. But that was the upset Yankee fans dealing with the Juan Soto news. That one got my best response yet. So I was really happy for that. So thank you very much for all the support. And I'm again very pleased to see that everybody is enjoying these. I'm getting likes and comments, and I'm trying to grow this channel. I do love talking about the Mets, and if you feel like there's a bad take or anything that you want to talk to me about, please leave a comment in the video, and just please be nice, and I'm more than happy to talk to anybody. So as long as people are polite and they leave comments that are about baseball and about the Mets, I'm more than happy to debate and discuss, and I will freely admit when I'm wrong, but I look forward to talking to anybody who wants to talk to me. So again, thank you very much for your support, and I really do appreciate it. Hope you have a wonderful night, and take care. Thank you for listening to Mike's Mets podcast. If you haven't already, please follow us on Spotify and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Leave a like and a comment, it helps so much. Finally, please follow our Twitter and Blue Sky pages. You can find us at Twitter at Mike's Mets Pod, all one word, and on Blue Sky at Mike's Mets Podcast.bsky.social. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful day or evening, and let's go Mets.